The afternoon sun blazed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Elite Combat Academy, casting long shadows across the pristine octagon where Imani Thompson knelt with her cleaning supplies. Her dark hands moved methodically across the vinyl canvas, wiping away the sweat and blood from the morning's training sessions. The smell of disinfectant mixed with the permanent scent of effort that no amount of cleaning could ever fully erase. Her khaki uniform hung loose on her frame, deliberately baggy to hide the muscle definition that years of elite competition had carved into her body. If you believe real karma exists, and that arrogance always gets what it deserves, you need to hear what happened next, because this story will restore your faith in justice. "Yo, check out the maid," a voice boomed across the academy, dripping with the kind of casual cruelty that comes from never being told no. Bradley the Hammer. Sullivan strutted across the mat, his entourage of 3 trailing behind like pilot fish following a shark. His Under Armour training gear probably cost more than Imani made in a month of cleaning. 6'2" of tattooed ego, fresh off a brutal knockout that had SportsCenter replaying his spinning elbow for 3 days straight. 23 wins, 2 losses, and a title shot in 3 weeks that had him feeling invincible. "Didn't know we hired entertainment." Imani didn't look up. She'd learned long ago that acknowledging bullies only fed them. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her head. "Let fools tire themselves out with their own noise, baby girl." She squeezed her cleaning rag into the bucket, the water turning slightly pink from someone's split eyebrow. "I'm talking to you," Bradley said, his shadow falling over her. He kicked the bucket slightly, sloshing water onto the canvas she'd just cleaned. His boys, Kevin Martinez, his grizzled trainer with cauliflower ears, Derek Thornton, his slick manager in a $3,000 suit, and Chad Morrison, his oversized sparring partner, laughed on cue. "You deaf or just slow? I guess people like you don't have to answer when spoken to, right?" Around the academy, 40-plus members slowed their workouts. Treadmills decreased to walking pace. Heavy bags stopped swinging. Everyone could feel the shift in atmosphere, that electric tension before a storm. Cell phones started emerging from gym bags. Someone was about to get humiliated, and in 2025, if it wasn't filmed, did it even happen? Imani stood slowly, meeting his eyes for the first time. At 5'7", she had to look up, but something in her gaze made Bradley's smirk falter for just a microsecond. Her eyes held the kind of calm that only comes from supreme confidence or complete indifference. "I'm just doing my job, sir. I'll be out of your way in 5 minutes." "Sir?" Bradley laughed, a sharp, mocking bark. "Hear that, boys?" She called me sir, like she's got manners and shit. He circled her slowly, his entourage forming a loose semicircle that cut off her exit. "You look like you can handle yourself. Those shoulders, that stance. Let me guess, you learned to fight in prison? Or maybe just street brawling in whatever hood you crawled out of?" Kevin Martinez chuckled, crossing his scarred arms. "Boss, come on, don't terrorize the help." Nah, I'm serious," Bradley continued, warming to his performance. His voice carried across the silent academy. "Look at her. She's got that look, you know? Like she's been in some parking lot fights, maybe a few jail cells. I bet you throw hands real good, don't you?" He threw a few exaggerated, sloppy punches in the air near her face. "Come on, show me what GHETTOFIGHTING looks like." Imani's jaw tightened. Her hands, still damp from cleaning solution, flexed slightly at her sides. "I'm not interested in showing you anything. Please let me finish my work." "Oh, she's not interested," Derek Thornton said, his manager instincts sensing content gold. He pulled out his phone, already thinking about how this could go viral, boost Bradley's bad boy image before the title fight. "Bradley, maybe offer her some motivation." Bradley's eyes lit up. He pulled his wallet from his gym bag, making a show of thumbing through bills. "Tell you what, sweetheart. I'll give you $100, That's probably 2 days' pay for someone like you, if you can last 30 seconds sparring with me. Just 30 seconds. We'll even make it interesting. Go bare knuckle so you don't hurt your pretty little hands and gloves. The academy had gone completely silent now. Even the air conditioning seemed to quiet. 20 phones were openly recording. On the treadmill closest to the octagon, Zuri Williams, the yoga instructor, had stopped completely, her brown face tight with concern. She was the only person in this building who knew the truth, and she was watching this train wreck with growing horror. "I'm not a fighter," Imani said quietly, though her voice carried a strange undertone that Bradley was too arrogant to catch. "I'm just here to clean." "Bullshit," Bradley said, louder now, playing to his audience. "You're scared. That's what this is. You people always talk big on the streets, but when a real fighter steps up, you fold. Come on, show me what you got. Unless you're too scared, unless all that muscle is just for show." Chad Morrison, the sparring partner, stepped forward, 6'4" and 240 pounds of mean. "Boss, I don't think—" "Shut it," Bradley snapped. "I want to see if the MAID can fight." He turned back to Imani, close enough now that she could smell his expensive cologne and the protein shake on his breath. "What's wrong? Afraid people are going to see what happens when someone from your background steps into the ring with a real champion? Afraid everyone will see you're just another wannabe?" Imani's eyes closed for just a moment. Her grandmother had also told her, "There comes a time when silence becomes complicity, baby. When a bully needs to be taught." $300, she said quietly. Bradley blinked. "What?" "If you want me to spar, it's $300. And when I win, you also apologize to every person in this academy for being a racist piece of shit." Her voice remained steady, but something had shifted. The quiet cleaning lady was gone. Something else was surfacing, something that had been hidden under baggy clothes and deliberate obscurity. The academy erupted in gasps and nervous laughter. Bradley's face flushed red. "When you win." "Oh, baby girl, you just made this so much better. Derek, you getting this?" Every second, Derek grinned, his phone's camera locked on them. "You got yourself a deal," Bradley said, pulling $300 bills from his wallet and handing them to Kevin. "Hold this. When I'm done embarrassing her, she can use it for the dental work." He vaulted into the octagon with the casual grace of someone who'd done it 1,000 times. "Come on, maid, let's see what you people are made of." Imani looked at Zuri, who was shaking her head frantically. But it was too late. The moment had arrived, inevitable as sunrise. She stripped off her khaki uniform shirt, revealing a simple black tank top underneath. And suddenly, the entire academy could see what the baggy uniform had hidden. Shoulders carved from marble, arms that showed years of disciplined training, abs that looked like they'd been sculpted by a master artist. "Damn," someone whispered from the crowd. Bradley noticed, but misread it. "Oh, so you do work out. That's cute. Probably doing those Instagram workouts, right? Some yoga and light weights?" He was bouncing now, loose and confident, hands up in a basic MMA stance. Imani climbed into the octagon with movements that were almost liquid. When she stood across from him, her stance was subtle. Left foot slightly forward, weight balanced perfectly. Hands at her sides, but ready. Nothing flashy, nothing wasted. The stance of someone who had nothing to prove. "Yo, boss, maybe—" Chad started from outside the cage. "Timer!" Bradley barked. 30 seconds, starting, now!" He rushed forward immediately, throwing a heavy overhand right designed to overwhelm her with power and speed. It was a good punch, the kind that had knocked out legitimate contenders. Imani slipped it by an inch, her head moving just enough. Bradley's fist whistled through empty air. His eyes widened slightly. Lucky dodge. He threw a combination: jab, cross, low kick. The low kick was nasty, the kind that collapsed legs and ended fights. Imani checked the kick with her shin and simultaneously caught his extended arm, redirecting his momentum. Bradley stumbled forward, off balance for the first time in years. What the? Her first real strike was a front push kick to his chest, not hard, almost playful. Bradley absorbed it and backed up, reassessing. This woman moved like water, like smoke. Nothing was where he expected it to be. Lucky, he grunted and came in again, this time with his wrestling trying to use his size advantage. He shot for a double-leg takedown, the kind that had put opponents on their backs in the UFC. Imani sprawled perfectly, her hips back, weight driving down on his shoulders. Then she did something that made Kevin Martinez gasp from ringside. She spun behind Bradley, caught him in a standing rear-naked choke variation, and used his own momentum to flip him. Bradley the Hammer Sullivan, undefeated in his last 8 fights, crashed onto his back with Imani's knee on his chest. 15 seconds left, someone called from the crowd, their voice shaky. Bradley bucked and rolled, his superior strength allowing him to escape. He came up furious now, embarrassed. "You bitch! I'm going to—" He threw a spinning back fist, wild and angry, the same move that had gone viral 3 days ago. Imani ducked under it so smoothly it looked choreographed. Then, in the space between heartbeats, she struck. Left low kick to his lead leg. A crack like a baseball bat echoed through the academy. Bradley's leg buckled, right hook to the ribs, precision, not power, targeting the floating rib. Bradley's breath exploded out, left uppercut to the solar plexus, surgical, cutting off his air completely, and finally a right high kick that came from an angle he'd never seen before, her shin catching him on the temple with just enough force to stun. Bradley, the Hammer Sullivan, dropped to one knee, gasping, his eyes unfocused. The entire combination had taken maybe 2 seconds. The 30-second timer hadn't even finished. The academy exploded. People were screaming, not in celebration, but in shock. Cell phones shook in trembling hands as dozens of people captured the impossible. "Stop!" Marcus Davis's voice boomed across the academy. The owner came running from his office, his face a mixture of horror and something else. Recognition. He stared at Imani, really looked at her, and his eyes went wide. Oh my God, those combinations, that style, number. No way. Imani stood over Bradley, breathing normally, not even winded. She looked at Marcus, and there was an apology in her eyes. "The Thompson Tempest," Marcus whispered, and the name hit the crowd like a bomb. You're Imani Tempest Thompson. 47-0. 12 title defenses. You retired 2 years ago as the pound-for-pound—" He couldn't even finish. Zuri had her hands over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Bradley looked up from his knees, blood trickling from his nose where Imani's kick had landed. "Wait," he said, his voice hoarse. "Wait, that's not— You're a cleaning lady. You can't be—" "I am a cleaning lady," Imani said quietly, her Jamaican accent thicker now with emotion. "I clean this academy because after my daughter was born with a heart condition, I needed regular hours and health insurance. Fighting didn't give me that. This job does." She looked down at him with something that wasn't quite pity. "But I was also the world kickboxing champion for 6 years straight. Undefeated. Retired because I had nothing left to prove and a baby girl who needed her mother alive." The gym was silent except for Bradley's labored breathing. "You assumed that because I was black, because I was cleaning, because I was a woman, that I was beneath you," Imani continued. Her voice wasn't angry, just tired. Tired of this happening over and over in different forms. "You assumed people like me learned to fight in prison, that we're from the hood, that we're less than you. You made me a stereotype in your head and never bothered to see the actual person." Bradley tried to stand, his legs shaky. His face had gone from red to white to a grayish pale. It was just trash talk. You know how fighters—" "You assaulted me," Imani said simply. "In front of 40 witnesses. You used racial language. You forced a physical confrontation with an employee who tried repeatedly to decline. That's not trash talk, Mr. Sullivan. That's a crime. Derek Thornton, Bradley's manager, had his phone out, but he wasn't recording anymore. He was frantically making calls, already trying to do damage control. His meal ticket had just committed career suicide on camera. Kevin Martinez climbed into the octagon, helping Bradley to his feet. The trainer's face was grim. Boss, you need to apologize. Right now. Before this gets what? Marcus Davis said, his own phone now out. Gets viral? Too late. This is already on 20 phones. Give it an hour. It'll be on Twitter. By tonight, ESPN will be calling. He looked at Bradley with undisguised contempt. You picked the wrong person to humiliate, son. You picked a legend. Bradley's eyes darted around the academy, seeing the cameras, the witnesses, the evidence of his destruction being uploaded in real time. His title shot in 3 weeks flashed before his eyes. The sponsorships, the future he'd been building. I'm sorry, he whispered, but it sounded hollow, desperate. I'm sorry. I didn't know. You shouldn't need to know someone's resume to treat them with basic respect, Imani said. She picked up her cleaning shirt and started putting it back on. You should treat everyone with dignity regardless of what they do for work, what color their skin is, or what assumptions you make about their background. She climbed out of the octagon, picked up her bucket and cleaning supplies, and walked toward the locker room. The crowd parted for her like the Red Sea. No one said a word. They just stared, their phones still recording, capturing the moment a champion walked away with her dignity intact while a bully faced the beginning of his downfall. At the door, Imani paused and looked back. Marcus, I'll need the security footage from your cameras. All angles. My lawyer will be in touch. Marcus nodded slowly. Already making copies. Bradley stood in the octagon, surrounded by his team, but completely alone. The look on his face suggested he was beginning to understand just how badly he'd miscalculated. Not just the fight, though getting demolished in 90 seconds by a cleaning lady would haunt him forever, but everything that came next. If this moment shocked you, if you felt that satisfaction seeing arrogance meet karma, smash that subscribe button and hit the like, because Imani's journey is just beginning, and the justice she's about to deliver is going to be absolutely beautiful. 3 hours after the confrontation, Bradley Sullivan sat in a lawyer's office with his head in his hands while Derek Thornton paced frantically, his phone practically smoking from the call volume. The video had done exactly what Marcus predicted. 26 million views in 3 hours across TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. #1 worldwide. But it wasn't just the fight going viral. It was the racism. And you people always talk big. Probably learned to fight in prison, from whatever hood you crawled out of. Every news outlet in America was playing those clips on loop. ESPN had already pulled Bradley's scheduled appearance on First Take. His main sponsor, Reign Energy Drinks, released a statement at 6 p.m. We do not condone racism or violence against employees. Effective immediately, Bradley Sullivan is no longer a Reign athlete. $2 million, gone with a press release. Bradley's lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Henderson, set down her tablet with the kind of controlled anger that comes from dealing with idiot clients. The district attorney's office called. They're filing charges, aggravated assault, battery, harassment, and they're considering hate crime enhancements because of the racial language. Hate crime? Bradley's voice cracked. It was just caught on camera from 18 different angles, Patricia snapped. You physically intimidated her, used racial stereotypes, kicked her cleaning supplies, trapped her in the octagon, and struck her. That you got your ass handed to you doesn't change the legal definition of assault. Derek stopped pacing. Can we settle? Pay her off? Make this go away? Her lawyer is Sharon Mitchell, Patricia said flatly. Derek's face went white. Sharon Mitchell had taken down 3 Fortune 500 companies for discrimination in the past 5 years alone. She was a legal assassin who only took cases she believed in, and won 94% of them. "Oh, God," Derek whispered. Meanwhile, across Atlanta, in a modest 3-bedroom house in East Point, Imani sat at her kitchen table with her 2-year-old daughter Amara asleep in the next room. Sharon Mitchell sat across from her, reviewing the security footage on a laptop for the 7th time. Sharon was 53, black, and had the kind of presence that made opposing counsel sweat before she even spoke. "It's textbook," Sharon said quietly. "Assault, battery, workplace harassment, civil rights violations. The racial component is undeniable. I count 11 separate instances of racial profiling or stereotyping in a 4-minute interaction." She paused the video on Bradley's face as he said, "People like you. This frame alone is worth $1 million in court." Imani rubbed her temples. "I just wanted to clean and go home to my daughter. I didn't want any of this." "I know," Sharon said gently. "But he made it your reality. And now we make sure it never happens to anyone else." She closed the laptop. "The DA is filing criminal charges tomorrow. We'll file civil suit on Wednesday. Assault, battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress, civil rights violations under Georgia law. We're going after Sullivan personally and the Academy for failing to protect you as an employee." "Marcus didn't know," Imani protested. "He hired me because he knew I needed the job." "Marcus responded appropriately once he witnessed it," Sharon agreed. "But his insurance will cover institutional liability for allowing the environment where this occurred. Don't worry, Marcus won't suffer. His premiums might go up, but he'll be fine. He's already given us every piece of footage and a sworn statement." Imani looked toward Amara's room, thinking about hospital bills, about the surgery her daughter would need in 18 months, about the life insurance policy that had lapsed when she retired from fighting. "What happens now?" "Now?" Sharon smiled, and it was the smile of a hunter who'd spotted prey. "Now we destroy him legally, financially, and professionally. And we make sure every arrogant athlete who thinks service workers are beneath them learns a very public lesson." The arraignment happened on a gray Tuesday morning in Fulton County Superior Court. Bradley Sullivan walked into the courthouse in a navy suit, flanked by his legal team, while protesters lined the steps. Signs read, "Black Lives Matter," "Service Workers Deserve Respect," and "Thompson Tempest Forever." News cameras created a wall of lenses and microphones. Inside, Judge Angela Young presided, a black woman who'd spent 30 years on the bench and had zero patience for racism in her courtroom. She read the charges in a voice that could cut glass. "Aggravated assault, battery, criminal harassment, violation of civil rights under Georgia Statute 16-11-37. Bradley's attorney stood. "Your Honor, my client wishes to plead not guilty. This was a consensual sparring match that—" Judge Young held up one hand. "Counselor, I've watched the video. All 18 angles. Your client physically intimidated an employee who declined participation at least 4 times. He used racially charged language. He trapped her in a fighting cage after she attempted to walk away. There's nothing consensual about coercion." She set her gavel down with a crack that echoed. "Bail is set at $50,000. Defendant will surrender his passport. Trial is scheduled for—" She checked her calendar. 8 weeks from today. In the gallery, Imani sat with Sharon, watching Bradley's face drain of color as the reality sank in. His UFC title shot was in 2 weeks. He'd have to withdraw. His career was imploding in real time. "Your Honor," Bradley's attorney tried again. "My client's livelihood depends on—" "Your client's livelihood depended on treating people with basic human decency," Judge Young said coldly. "He failed spectacularly. Bail is set. We're adjourned." The civil suit hit 3 days later, and it was brutal. Sharon Mitchell filed a 47-page complaint that detailed every second of the confrontation, every racial stereotype Bradley had deployed, every attempt Imani had made to disengage. The filing included links to all 18 video angles, transcripts of the dialogue, and expert testimony from a psychologist about the trauma of racial harassment. The lawsuit named Bradley Sullivan personally for $8 million in damages. It named Elite Combat Academy's insurance for $2 million in institutional liability. And it demanded a public apology, mandatory anti-racism training for all professional fighters affiliated with Bradley's management company, and the establishment of a foundation supporting service workers' rights. The media coverage was relentless. ESPN ran a 30-minute special titled The Fall of the Hammer, documenting Bradley's rise and spectacular collapse. They interviewed former sparring partners who admitted he'd always had a casual racism problem, but no one called it out because he was winning. They found 3 other gym employees, 2 black, 1 Latino, who described similar harassment that they'd been too afraid to report. Bradley's remaining sponsors dropped him within 48 hours. His Instagram, once a shrine to his success with 4 million followers, became a graveyard of deleted comments and ratioed posts. He tried to issue an apology video, but it was so obviously scripted and insincere that it became a meme within hours. The trial began on a humid Monday in July. The federal courthouse in downtown Atlanta was packed, protesters outside, media in every available seat, and a jury of 12 Atlanta residents who'd all seen the video but swore they could be impartial. Sharon Mitchell stood for opening arguments in a burgundy suit that meant business. Ladies and gentlemen, this case is simple. A successful athlete saw a black woman doing a job he deemed beneath him, made assumptions based solely on her race, and physically assaulted her when she refused to be his entertainment. The evidence is incontrovertible. The video exists. The witnesses are numerous. The defendant's own words condemn him. She played the video. Even though everyone had seen it, watching it on the courtroom's large screen in complete silence was visceral. The jury's faces tightened with each racial epithet, each dismissive comment, each moment Bradley escalated the confrontation. Bradley's attorney, Patricia Henderson, did her best with an impossible case. My client made a terrible mistake. He used language and behavior that he deeply regrets. But this was not a premeditated attack. It was a momentary lapse in judgment. A 4-minute lapse, Sharon interrupted during cross-examination. 11 separate racial stereotypes, 4 explicit attempts by Ms. Thompson to disengage that your client blocked. That's not momentary, counselor. That's a pattern of behavior. The testimony was devastating. Marcus Davis described hiring Imani specifically because he knew she needed stable work after retiring from fighting. She never wanted attention, never wanted people to know her history. She just wanted to provide for her daughter and have health insurance. Zuri Williams wept on the stand, describing how she'd watched her friend be humiliated. Imani is the strongest person I know. Not because she can fight, because she has the grace to walk away from fights. Watching Bradley force her into that cage, it was like watching someone torture a tiger and being surprised when it finally bit back. Then Sharon called Imani to the stand. She was wearing a simple blue dress, her hair in natural curls, no makeup. She looked like exactly what she was, a working mother pushed past her breaking point. Ms. Thompson, why did you retire from kickboxing at the peak of your career? Imani's voice was steady. My daughter, Amara, was born with a congenital heart defect. She'll need surgery. Fighting couldn't give me the health insurance or stability I needed to care for her properly, so I retired and took the first job with benefits I could find. Did you tell anyone at the academy about your fighting background? Only Marcus and Zuri. I didn't want special treatment. I just wanted to work, collect my paycheck, and go home to my baby. What did you feel when Mr. Sullivan targeted you? Imani was quiet for a moment. Tired. So tired of being seen as a threat or a stereotype instead of just a person doing her job. I tried to walk away 4 times. He wouldn't let me. And I realized, this is what people of color deal with every day. We're not allowed to just exist. We're forced to prove ourselves, defend ourselves, justify our presence in spaces others take for granted. The courtroom was silent except for someone sniffling in the gallery. The prosecution rested after 3 days. The defense called Bradley to the stand, and it was a massacre. Sharon Mitchell destroyed him during cross-examination. "Mr. Sullivan, you stated Ms. Thompson looked like she learned to fight in prison. What about her appearance suggested incarceration?" Bradley stammered. "I didn't mean, it was just—" "What about her appearance, Mr. Sullivan?" "I don't know. Was it her dark skin? Her natural hair? What visual cue suggested criminality to you?" It was just trash talk. You said people like you 3 times in 4 minutes. Who are people like her, Mr. Sullivan?" The courtroom held its breath. I didn't mean it racially." Sharon played the video again, letting his own words hang in the air. Then she turned to the jury. "The defendant would have you believe his racial profiling, his physical intimidation, his assault of a working mother was just trash talk. But trash talk happens between competitors who've agreed to compete. Ms. Thompson never agreed. She tried to leave. He trapped her, and then he assaulted her. That's not trash talk, ladies and gentlemen, that's a crime." The jury deliberated for 90 minutes. When they returned, the forewoman, a black woman in her 50s who worked as a nurse, stood with the verdict paper trembling in her hands. "On the charge of aggravated assault, we find the defendant guilty." Bradley's head dropped. "On the charge of battery, we find the defendant guilty." His lawyer closed her eyes. "On the charge of criminal harassment with racial bias enhancement, we find the defendant guilty." Judge Young nodded slowly. "Mr. Sullivan, stand for sentencing." Bradley stood on shaking legs. His face was the color of old newspaper. "You are hereby sentenced to 18 months in federal prison, followed by 3 years supervised probation. You will complete 200 hours of community service teaching conflict resolution in underprivileged communities. You will undergo mandatory counseling for racial bias, and you will issue a public apology, unscripted, genuine, and verified by this court's appointed psychologist, within 30 days. She looked at him with something between pity and contempt. "You threw away a promising career because you couldn't see a black woman as a human being worthy of basic respect. I hope you learn from this. We're adjourned." If you felt that satisfaction hearing guilty, if you believe actions have consequences, subscribe and hit that like button because Imani's story isn't over. It's just beginning to transform lives. And comment below, did justice go far enough? 18 months later, Imani Thompson stood at a podium in the Georgia state capitol, addressing a packed chamber of legislators, activists, and media. She wore a tailored charcoal suit, her natural hair styled in elegant locks. Behind her sat Governor Brian Kemp, Senate leadership, and Marcus Davis, who'd become an unexpected ally in her mission. "The Service Workers Protection Act," Imani began, her voice clear and strong, "isn't about what happened to me. It's about the millions of people who experience workplace harassment, discrimination, and assault, but don't have viral videos to prove it. It's about the single mothers cleaning offices at midnight, the janitors invisible in their own workplaces, the service workers society depends on but refuses to see." The bill she'd spent a year crafting with Sharon Mitchell and a coalition of labor rights organizations had teeth. Mandatory cameras in all gyms and fitness facilities, strict penalties for workplace harassment, protection for employees who report discrimination, and, most importantly, a legal presumption that employer-employee interactions are non-consensual unless proven otherwise, ending the "they agreed to spar" defense forever. The gallery erupted in applause. The bill passed 94-12. Governor Kemp signed it that afternoon with Imani's daughter Amara, now 3 years old and recovering beautifully from her heart surgery, sitting on his lap for the photo op. Bradley Sullivan, meanwhile, was 6 months into his federal sentence at USP Atlanta. The prison had a small gym. Nothing like elite combat academy, just rusted weights and a heavy bag that leaked sand. Bradley spent his hours there not training for glory, but teaching conflict resolution to inmates, many of them young Black and Latino men who'd grown up with the same stereotypes he'd weaponized against Imani. "Why you really here?" asked a 19-year-old named Jamal during one session, his skepticism evident. "You some rich white boy who got caught. You don't give a damn about us." Bradley could have gotten defensive. 6 months ago, he would have. But prison had stripped away the ego, the entourage, the Instagram followers, everything except the raw truth of who he'd been. "You're right," Bradley said quietly. "I don't know your life. I grew up with every advantage, but I came here because I destroyed my own life by seeing people as stereotypes instead of humans. I looked at a Black woman cleaning and made her every racist assumption I'd absorbed growing up. Cost me everything, my career, my freedom, my self-respect." He met Jamal's eyes. "I can't undo what I did, but maybe I can stop one of you from making the same stupid, hateful mistakes." The silence that followed wasn't comfortable, but it was honest. Outside the prison walls, the settlement from Bradley's civil trial had been finalized. $8 million, plus the institutional insurance payout. Imani used it to launch the Thompson Foundation, dedicated to supporting service workers' families. The foundation provided scholarships for children of cleaning staff, janitors, and maintenance workers. It funded legal aid for employees facing workplace discrimination, and it paid for Amara's surgery and every follow-up treatment she'd ever need. Elite Combat Academy underwent its own transformation. Marcus Davis partnered with Imani to create the Respect in Combat program, mandatory training for all members about treating staff with dignity, recognizing unconscious bias, and the legal consequences of harassment. The program became a model adopted by 300 gyms nationwide within a year. Zuri Williams became the program's lead trainer, traveling to facilities across the country. What happened to Imani wasn't unique, she told a room full of gym owners in Dallas. It was just filmed. Every person of color working in fitness has a story like this. We're just done being silent about it. The UFC, desperate to distance itself from Bradley's scandal, created a mandatory diversity and inclusion program for all fighters. Failure to complete it meant contract termination. They hired Imani as a consultant, paying her $200,000 to develop the curriculum. She made it brutal and honest, forcing athletes to confront their privilege, their assumptions, and the power dynamics in every interaction. 2 years after the confrontation, ESPN ran a follow-up special. Where Are They Now? The Thompson Tempest Incident. They interviewed Bradley in prison, his UFC physique softened, his arrogance replaced by something resembling humility. "I was a racist," he said bluntly to the camera, no lawyer present to soften his words. "Not Klan member racist, but the everyday kind, the assumptions, the jokes, the way I saw Black people as less than. I thought I was better than Imani because she cleaned for a living and I was a champion. Truth is, she was always the champion. I was just a bully with good PR." He paused, his voice cracking. "I think about her every day. About how she tried 4 times to walk away, and I wouldn't let her. About how I could have just let her do her job and go home to her kid. I destroyed my life, but more importantly, I traumatized hers. That's what keeps me up at night." The interview had 60 million views. Some people praised his growth. Others said it was too little, too late. Imani, when asked for comment, simply said, "I hope he means it. Not for my sake. I've moved on. For the sake of the next person who crosses his path." Amara Thompson turned 5 years old on a sunny October morning, her surgery scars barely visible under her Moana birthday dress. The party was at Elite Combat Academy, transformed with balloons and a bounce house in the octagon where her mother had once been attacked. 40 kids ran around screaming, including several children of gym employees whose college funds were now secured by the Thompson Foundation. Marcus gave a toast, his voice thick with emotion. 3 years ago, something terrible happened in this building. A woman was attacked because of the color of her skin and the assumptions of a small man. But from that darkness came light, a movement, a foundation, laws that protect workers across this state. Imani took her pain and transformed it into purpose. Imani held Amara close, her daughter's heartbeat strong and steady against her chest, the heartbeat that almost wasn't, that now represented everything Imani had fought for. "Baby girl," she whispered, "you're going to grow up in a world that's a little bit better because people decided enough was enough." Later that evening, after the party ended and Amara was asleep, Imani sat in her home office looking at emails. One caught her attention. From a woman in Oregon, a Latina janitor at a tech company who'd been harassed by executives. She'd reported it, citing the Thompson case as precedent. Her company had settled for $300,000 and fired the executives involved. "Your courage gave me courage," the woman wrote. "Thank you for not staying silent." Imani forwarded the email to Sharon Mitchell with a simple message. "This is why." Bradley Sullivan was released after serving 14 months with good behavior. He emerged into a world that had moved on without him. His UFC contract was terminated. His former sponsors wanted nothing to do with him. His social media accounts, once boasting millions of followers, were digital ghost towns. He took a job teaching basic self-defense at a community center in Decatur for $15 an hour. No glory, no cameras, no entourage. Just him, a room of kids, and the slow, unglamorous work of becoming a better human being. One of his students was a 12-year-old black girl named Kira who reminded him painfully of how he'd spoken to Imani. "You're pretty good," Bradley told her after she executed a perfect armbar on her practice partner. "My mom says people like you used to say people like me couldn't fight," Kira said, her eyes challenging him. "That changed, didn't it?" Bradley met her gaze and saw Imani in it. The same quiet strength, the same refusal to be diminished. "Yeah," he said softly. "That changed. Thanks to someone a lot braver than me." 5 years after the confrontation, Imani stood in the same octagon at Elite Combat Academy, but this time surrounded by 50 service workers, janitors, cleaners, maintenance staff from across Atlanta. She was teaching them basic self-defense, not for fighting, but for confidence. "You don't need to be a champion to deserve respect," she told them, her voice carrying the weight of experience and hard-won wisdom. "You don't need a title or a trophy or a viral video. You deserve dignity because you're human. Period. What happened to me was visible because cameras were rolling. But invisible disrespect happens every day. We're done accepting it as normal." The class erupted in applause. Among the participants was a young white man, maybe 25, who approached her afterward nervously. "Ms. Thompson, I used to work security at clubs. I treated people badly, people of color especially. I saw what happened to you and that other guy, and it made me look at myself. I quit that job. I'm trying to do better. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry, for every time I made someone feel small." Imani studied him for a long moment. Apologies were easy. Change was hard. But she saw genuine shame in his eyes, genuine desire to grow. "Then do better," she said simply. "Not for me, for the next person." That's how the world changes. One choice at a time. That evening, Imani tucked Amara into bed, her daughter's bookshelf now lined with stories of strong women, activists, and changemakers. Amara looked up at her mother with eyes too wise for 6 years old. "Mama, teacher said you're a hero." Imani smiled, brushing a curl from Amara's forehead. "Heroes are people who keep going when it's hard, baby. Who stand up when it's easier to stay down. You're going to be a hero too in your own way. Like you knocked down that mean man." "No, baby." Imani kissed her daughter's forehead. "Like I stood up after." That's the real superpower. Not the fighting, but the healing. The building something better from the broken pieces. As Imani turned off the light and closed the door, she thought about Bradley in his community center, teaching kids who would never know his name or his shame. about the legislation that now protected workers across Georgia, about the foundation supporting 300 families, about the culture shift, small but real, happening in gyms and workplaces across America. The confrontation had lasted 4 minutes. The consequences would ripple forward for generations. If this story moved you, if you believe one person's courage can change the world, do 3 things right now. Subscribe to this channel because stories of justice and transformation matter. Hit that like button if you felt every emotion of this journey. Comment below with where you're watching from and share one way you can stand up for someone who needs an ally. And share this video, because somewhere, right now, someone is being dismissed, stereotyped, or attacked for doing honest work. They need to know they're not alone. They need to know that dignity isn't granted by titles or paychecks. It's inherent in being human. Angels don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear cleaning uniforms and carry mops. Sometimes they're champions hiding in plain sight, waiting for the moment when silence is no longer an option. This was Imani Thompson's story. What will yours be?